Rhonda, thank you so much. And welcome everyone for our panel discussion tonight. I think we have such a beautiful list of panelists who are going to be able to share their journey stories. So I'm really excited that we get the opportunity to talk with you all this evening. And to kick off the conversation, I just want to, welcome our panelists. So we have Jess, we have Leilani, and we have Ali. Could any of you, to kick off, take a moment to introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are, the communities and organizations that you surround yourselves within, and what you're passionate about.
Ai, kia ora, he uri ahau no te iwi o ngā tika hangunu ki Wairarapa, ko Jess Jenkins tōku ingoa. Kia ora everybody, my name is Jess and I am so stoked to be a panelist for tonight. Now the reason I was looking a little bit distracted just then because I've just realised that my background is inverse, but I will have you deal with it for tonight because I am a bit of a technophobe and can't figure out how to fix it right at this moment. I had the privilege of being a co-founder of the Multi-Ethnic Young Leaders back a few years ago now, and it has been such a joy to watch this organisation grow into the formidable, incredible, championing thing that it has become. I currently study economics and history, focusing on Te Ao Māori at Harvard University in the US, but I am back in the beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand for the next 3 months as I am on my winter break. Happy to be here, very excited to share my whakaaro, my experiences, and also elevate the stories of all of you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I will pass it over to Leilani.
Thank you, Jess. Kia ora everyone, Talofa lava o Lo'oingo o Leilani Faaiuaso. I'm a third generation New Zealand born Samoan from the villages of Salilolonga, Leolu Luatua Nu'u, and Faleolupo. Proudly born and raised in Manidua, South Auckland, and now living in Palmerston North with my family. I'm in my final year at Massey University studying a double degree, Bachelor of Business majoring in Management, and a Bachelor of Arts majoring in Psychology. I have the honour and privilege of serving in many governance and committee spaces where I challenge the status quo as a systems disruptor and represent my Pacific, youth and local communities to create more accessible opportunities and safe spaces for our young leaders of today and tomorrow to have their voices listened to. I'm very confidently delulu and fearlessly ambitious in creating a better tomorrow because I'm living the dreams, answers and prayers of my grandparents and parents. So these blessings are a testament to all the collective and intergenerational love, care, money and petrol that was invested into my journey. A young brown girl who was raised in Manirua, South Auckland, but saw limitless opportunities to create change. Before te lava, I'll pass it over to my good friend, Ali.
Thank you, Leilani. Kia ora and assalamu alaikum, everyone. So cool to have two representatives from Palmerston North. Believe me, that doesn't happen very often. But very, very stoked to be here this evening among you all. Warm greetings from a very cold and a very gloomy Palmerston North day. I hope all of you are well in comfort of where you are. I'm Ali Mohammed. I had the privilege of now being in New Zealand for almost a decade. Came to New Zealand under the refugee quota back in 2015, and that is being a refugee is at the center of everything that I do, and that's been my core mission is around how we can best support our refugee and people, especially those who live in provincial, rural part of the country. And believe me, New Zealand looks very different when you're outside of Wellington and Auckland. So my purpose has been around how we can best support our young people in the regions, especially the ones that I call home, 102. And on how we can better challenge the system so our young people can thrive in the communities that they represent around. So, but also around how we can challenge kind of the massive refugee crisis that we have and continue to evolve. I had the privilege of being in Malaysia over last week around the crisis that we have in Asia Pacific around refugees and asylum seekers, and how we can better navigate to the systems and how we can better tackle those big challenges around. So but also in particular in Aotearoa, really passionate about the subject of identity around refugee people and what is the definition of New Zealander and how do you define it. So I'm really, really passionate about those conversations. But outside of kind of advocacy, I'm very, very passionate runner. That's a strong part of my identity, but also love my other kaupapa, which is around refereeing football. So thank you, everyone. Super looking forward to the conversation with you all this evening.
Kia ora. I've had the opportunity to work with almost all of you, and I still get blown away by your stories. And just from the LinkedIn stalking, I'm still absolutely stunned. So I'm really glad we can just dig into the conversation tonight. And Leilani, speaking on the topic of being confidently Delulu, which is just absolutely essential in this leadership journey, it feels like, it would be great to understand a little bit more about how identity and culture have played their roles in your leadership journeys. How have your communities come to support you, and what your definition of leadership has evolved into because of those things? Leilani, if you could kick off, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Vera. What a beautiful and hard question to start with. No, I love. And I think for me, I'll be honest, being a third generation New Zealand born Samoan, it's hard to have a cultural identity that's really strong. I didn't grow up with my language or culture, and I was, lived with my grandparents, but didn't really understand Faaiuaso or our Samoan culture. So for me, going to St. Cuthbert's College, being in a lot of corporate areas and governance, it was really hard to understand what did being Samoan look like, but then also what did being a leader look like in those spaces. And now I understand that they're one and the same, and you can't really take them away. So for me, cultural identity is inextricably a part of me, and it's who I am, and I now proudly represent myself in those spaces. But I also recognize that leadership is a collective act. It's not a solo act. And so when I honor my grandparents and my parents in my bio or my introduction, that's not me just saying, oh, this is my family. That's me bringing them into these spaces, because without their leadership and legacies, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm really proud of my culture, my identity, and the fact that leadership is not about the title or the CV perks, but recognizing the privileges and opportunities and knowledge that we have now, and selflessly sharing that and serving that and supporting our communities and youth to also be in those spaces to have their voices heard as well. So when we talk about Gen Zs and youth leadership, I see them as unapologetically curious and outspoken, limitless innovation, setting boundaries, and challenging the status quo for better today and tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. Jess, Ali, is there anything else you'd like to share to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll probably, I think, as Leilani mentioned, for young people of color and young people from from very diverse part of the country, I think for us, kind of the issue of identity can be so challenging. I remember having chat with one of our other refugee young people, and I asked him the question of belonging, and where does he belong, and where does he prefer, like calling home, and he said, 16-year-old, she told me that I've always have had struggles with that question. My parents are from Myanmar. I was born in Bangladesh and spent a few years in Thailand, and then now I'm living here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. For me, the question of around home and identity is such a diverse, and then goes around back to kind of overall spectrum of around the system, the challenges enough around, especially around us people of colors, around are we enough of a New Zealander? There's a question that I can get challenged almost on a daily basis around, and the ability to be able to prove to others every single day that you probably don't see yourself lesser than other New Zealanders can be very fatiguing. But we need to consistently ask the question around what is kind of the new definition of a New Zealander today, and probably New Zealand looks very different to what it was the New Zealand of the 1980s. So yeah, so that is and this topic would continue to evolve, but I think we need to really be able to be able to kind of share our stories and be able to kind of normalize kind of having different identities around. So that's going for us kind of very, very challenging at the heart of it. So yeah, and I big touch echo what Leilani earlier said as well.
Absolutely agree. I feel like when you're going on those journeys of, discovering who you are, what it means to be an Aotearoa, it really does challenge, the existing examples of leadership, because there might not be people like us already sitting in positions of power. So we have the really brave journey of making those roles and ideals for ourselves. So already it's been beautiful to see the roles that you two have taken up in your communities and seeing the examples that you lead for others. It's just absolutely so powerful. And thinking about kind of the existing systems of power, how do you all navigate the balance between advocating for change and working within these systems as a young leader? Jess, I would be really keen to hear from you on that.
Again, a wonderful, hard-hitting question, getting right to the core of why we are all here today. So I first want to total call the Kōrero shared by Leilani and Ali. You guys are incredible. And I want to acknowledge that I, as a kirituhi, a white-skinned Pākehā / Māori. I identify obviously as Māori, but I look very, very white. New Zealander, I can only resonate with the experiences of being a person of colour from somebody who works with people of colour and really enjoys and uplifts those experiences that you will hold. So I would like to first start by acknowledging that and say that my thoughts are my thoughts only, and I can only contribute what I can bring. Now, in terms of navigating identity and leadership and kind of coming to terms with the collective responsibilities that we hold both to ourselves and to the people that we seek to represent, I really like to start from where I come from. So as I said, Hiuri Aho no Tiwi o Ngāti Kahungunu Wairarapa. On my dad's side, I whakapapa to the Great Kahungunu, and the Māori language was actually lost in my direct lineage. So my great-grandmother, my kuia, was beaten at school for speaking, and so I only got the reo back when I learnt it at high school. And it was in these classrooms, in these Māori classrooms, that I first encountered the very, very real tensions that one can experience as a product of skin color, race, identity, kind of navigating different responsibilities that we hold to those who we call our ancestors, but those who we call ourselves and kind of our future, descendants. And so when I was in these Māori classrooms and I was there trying to embrace and kind of take back my heritage, I realized that I had experienced so much inherent privilege just simply because of the way that I look, right? I had waltzed through a lot of the spaces that I had been occupying. I had always been seen as someone to be respected regardless of what was coming out of my mouth. And I realized that I actually had this kind of inherent privilege from just being someone who could raise my voice and could speak up. I'm the eldest of 6 children and kind of all over the place. I'm sorry if this is a long-winded answer, but I'm the eldest of 6 children. I've always spoken my mind and been able to say things, and people have always listened because of the way that I look and the way that I present. And I think that that is such a huge privilege, and the ability to articulate oneself and actually be heard is an even bigger one. And it's something that I think so many of us take for granted, and it's incredibly easy to forget in leadership spaces. And so when I think about the obligations that we hold to, the different identities that New Zealand obviously has come to embrace, I think about the fact that we have to be unapologetically accountable to the responsibilities that we individually hold and the privileges that we each have, and the different experiences that we all bring to the table. And so that's kind of that we can start off on that train of thought. I think that's very open-ended, kind of all over the place. I'm sorry if that didn't make a lot of sense. That was a very roundabout way of saying that I think this is a big question and I don't really know the answer, but that's just a bit about my personal experience of coming into this space.
That absolutely made sense. I don't know what you're talking about. That was excellent. I feel like that opened up a really big space to talk about privilege, and it's a very vulnerable thing to admit, especially in the multi-ethnic space, because although there's some inherent, struggle and disadvantages that we may face, growing up, in the West and understanding leadership as the privilege that it is, it means that for a lot of our communities, they don't have the time, the space, the energy, the access to opportunities that we have been gifted. So it's always about acknowledging who is not in the room, even when, we're a part of that community as well. So I think you've raised some really important insights that I would love to hear if Ali, Leilani have anything else to say on it.
Yeah, I've done a bit of reflecting on this one. And I've been told so many things as a young leader. I've been told to play the game, find allies on the board, to be strategic. But, when you are a true systems disruptor, and like you said, when you have, I guess, privileges and opportunities to be in spaces where you don't see your own communities or people, it's frustrating. And it's really hard to be a young person with this unapologetic curiosity, but then still see the existing systems at play. I had to ask my dad last night. Dad goes, you're not there for yourself, eh? And I was like, oh, okay, Dad. But he's right. And it's remembering that we are there to represent our communities and the youth and the future generations. And regardless of how tough it is or how emotional it might be, we have to be those people that face into those hard conversations, that ask those really tough questions and that challenge people, systems and processes, because that's what our parents and our grandparents have done before us. So we think it's hard now. Well, just imagine how hard it was back then. So yeah, it's not going to get any easier, but when we think of the continuation of the legacies of our people in our communities, it just makes it all the more worthwhile. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I want to also kind of touch on that, and also just in respect to one of my favorite quotes that I've ever listened to is what goes around: "If you can't see it, you can't dream it. If you can't dream it, you can't be it." So, yeah, for example, like my journey around politics last year, and the likes of kind of taking a moment to recognise the right of the Honourable Gulriz Karaman as well as the Ibrahim Umar, who kind of were the first two refugee MPs in New Zealand, and around kind of reflecting around if they were the forefathers that laid sort of the foundation for someone like myself who comes from a small part of the country to be able to dream to be in the halls of power. I think massive credit goes back to both of them. And I think if the likes of Gulriz wouldn't have been in Parliament and probably even in the Greens Party, I think for so many of us, just being able to dream to be in the halls of power would have been so much distant. And last year, kind of when I ran it, now everywhere that I go to the country, like there's so many refugee people that comes across to me and ask me the question on, hey, how I can be a political candidate for myself. And I think having those, regardless of the political parties and where the values around, just be able to reflect on around kind of people being aspired to be able to do so much rather than just being around that shelf where our young people can be so comfortable because they usually don't see themselves being in sort of positions of influence. So it's about critical for us to be able to kind of be able to give kind of good role models, to be able to kind of show what's the pathways out there. I personally don't see myself lesser than any other New Zealander, and I think I see myself that I can be able to kind of challenge the status quo and challenge the systems, be able to have kind of diverse in terms of like New Zealand. 24% of New Zealanders neither Maori or Paky, but if you look at the diversity, especially in our current parliament, it's not really reflective of that. So it's about how we can better kind of challenge the system and ensure that our communities and the halls of power looks very much like our communities.
And that's just such a powerful message, right? Like that is the responsibility that we have to challenge the systems of power, to make sure that the people that hold power and influence look like us, because they will deeply affect all of our lives and the lives of our communities. And just on that, it would be great if all of you could share, and thinking of an experience. And Ellie, I think back to your campaign, and I was just taken aback, and it was something, really beautiful to witness. But, what opportunities have you taken? What initiatives have you been a part of where you can, be that challenge to the system when you're making that significant impact?
Yeah, I think just kind of navigating through the challenges, especially kind of within my own party when I started kind of navigating the system. And I think somebody who is person of color, Muslim, refugee, I think just kind of navigating the challenge around how I can navigate through the system, and probably broaden up around when I ran. I think in last year, considering that I was running in the most conservative part of the country, we had people are not welcoming to you as a socially progressive person at times. But again, be able to showcase kind of to your communities that you best represent around, that kind of having those dialogues around the people that's around you, around what is the possibilities out there. I think being able to kind of, again, be good role models around kind of supporting people around kind of endeavors. I think the biggest point is around, I think, like if people can't see on the big screen, unfortunately, people can never be able to dream around it. So since then, I think I've gone back to what is my core passion. It's been around my refugee community. So I've been investing a lot kind of on kind of better support around refugee settlements. I'm quite privileged currently that my current day role is with Newton Red Cross, and so I've been circulating around how our New Zealand government can better support our young people in terms of settlement. Once our young people do come across, but also kind of overseas around kind of the massive refugee crisis that we have. As I previously indicated, that I was in Kuala Lumpur last week around and had the opportunity to meet refugee communities and refugee stakeholders across the Asia Pacific region, and be able to hear some of those stories. It was really, really grounding. I managed to go to one of the refugee camps in Malaysia and be able to kind of, I think you feel sick to get the amount of privileges that I have as a resettled refugee into the first world, and be able to not forget the millions of young people who doesn't have the opportunities that I have, and the chances of young people being resettled into first world countries, less than 1% for our communities be able to consistently on the rights of young people. And just thinking today that I was able to graduate from a master's qualifications just last couple of weeks ago, and there will be millions and millions of unfortunate young people that will never have the opportunity to cross the stage with a gun in the head. And I think be able to kind of ensure that there is everything at the core of you. I think since then I've been able to kind of have numerous privileges around that, which has been very awesome. But there's a massive work around, especially we have a very, very challenging government, which is unfortunately will not be very kind to our people. So it's going to be a consistently challenging the system, and also potential kind of how we as communities can better support ourselves as well. So there's going to be two part of the work, especially for going forward as well. Thanks, Vira.
You really are one of the busiest people I know, and it is just remarkable that you even have time to speak with us this evening. And once again, we're just so grateful that you have the opportunity to share your kōrero. Leilani, Jess, once again, I would love to hear about the projects and initiatives that you've been involved in as young leaders.
Yeah, happy to quickly chip in. I'm putting Palmerston North on the map right now because I don't know. I'm calling out all you Aucklanders. I was born and raised in Auckland, but you guys need to humble yourselves, okay? Let us small cities have our little spotlight. So there's Polyfest in Auckland, but in Palmerston North we have Pacifica Fusion. Now, Pacifica Fusion not only does culture performance, but we do 12 educational categories. So from the arts, we've got debate, cinematography, wearable arts, essay writing, and all the likes. Look us up and see you there, July 2nd to 4th. But one of the things I'm really grateful to do is be the youngest member on that committee, and bringing our youth voices, but also having our youth representing on our social media platforms. So I've been making all the reels with our team, and it's been awesome to spotlight our Pacifica Fusion youth leaders or student leaders of their schools and putting their voices and narratives out there. I know that I'm only one of the many successful narratives of our youth today, and it's just been a pleasure and an honor to bring their stories and their voices into the room as well and show them to the world.
Phenomenal work per usual. And Jess, I would love to hear what you've been up to as well.
Incredible. So I've been quite privileged to be involved in a number of teams, and I mean, just on a side note, I think it's quite incredible for me to be actually doing a panel on youth leadership, because I feel that all of the things that I've done in my leadership experiences have actually not been because I see myself as an explicit leader, but because I'm very passionate about the things that I like to do, and I love working with the incredible people who elevate and support me to and help me be, I suppose, what someone might call a leader. So, you know, I think in terms of the main things I've been involved in recently, I definitely want to highlight the multi-ethnic young leaders, as well as the Rangatahi Leadership Opportunities Database, which is why we are all here today celebrating. I was privileged enough to actually speak as the MC to launch MYLN in Government House, and that was a very, very special moment with an incredible amount of work that went in from the amazing team, Michelle and the rest of the board. You guys are forever my inspirations, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this organisation. And then for the Rangatahi Leadership Opportunities Database, I saw and was very, very inspired by Marie, who you will hear from at the end of this session, who has been such a champion, such a change maker in this space, enabling access to opportunity for all youth around not only Aotearoa New Zealand, but far beyond, has been a huge source of inspiration and influence, I think, for everybody, both in MYLN, but also around Aotearoa. So I've just been humbled to be in spaces with amazing people, and I'm very, very privileged that I get to be here and be surrounded by them today.
Oh, kia ora. A lot of what you've all spoken about kind of reminds me of the things that I've been lucky enough to be a part of. And like you all say, it is about the people and the communities that help support that mahi. thinking really specifically, in 2021, I got involved with the International Initiative for Mental Health Leadership, leading a big conference, bringing a bunch of young people together. And it was probably one of the wildest experiences of my life. I know that I want to give all the credit to Lashoma for organizing this, because back then that experience made me lose all my hair. That's why I'm still bald. And it has just been an absolute strike trying to match up to that level. So credit to all of y'all who have been involved in any type of conference organizing, planning, because it is the mahi and it takes a lot of energy. And speaking of all of the energy that we spend doing the things that we love for the communities that we love, how do y'all look after yourselves? I want to hear about the self-care. I want to hear about the wellness and well-being, because we do not talk about it enough.
Wow, wow, wow. I guess, oh, Jess, do you want to go? Okay. It reminds me, Vira and Lashoma, you'll know, our beautiful sister Latavia Tualasia Tautai says, empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. If you have a pen and a paper, team, please write it down. I'll say it again. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. Now, we all love to serve our communities. We love to represent those that are not represented on boards or spaces or governance enough. But what I've found is that if I don't fill up my own cup, I'm not able to pour it into others. And I'm not able to turn up 100%. And that's really hard, especially when your heart's in the kaupapa and you physically, mentally, and emotionally aren't there with people. Trust me, I've tried. I've been there, I've done that. And whilst I was thriving in uni, governance, and all the likes, at home, I was, not eating, not sleeping, really struggling with my well-being. So you can't soldier through it. Please don't be stubborn. Please listen to your body. But I think it's just really important here to remind everyone to give yourself a lot of grace and love, which I've had to learn how to do. A lot of these spaces that we know that seem for youth or are supposed to be safe spaces often aren't. And so we just wanted to remind you, take care of your own well-being. At the end of the day, you are responsible for yourself and you have to show up for yourself as well. I'm proudly village and made and raised. And so I also remember that my family's here, I'm not in it alone, not doing it alone. So I also rely on my those around me and my friends. So really privileged to have them in that space as well.
Yeah, 100% total understand completely. I'm actually coming from quite a unique or kind of interesting situation in which I've been away from Aotearoa for the past 2 years now, which is quite strange for me, having kind of come out of the COVID bubble and then jumping abroad for 2 years. And as I said, I'm the eldest of 6 children, so I've always been very, very close to my family. So it was a huge adjustment, and being away from all of my connections to home and things like that has made me realize how important it is to stay in touch with the people who empower you, the people who support you, the people who love you, and the people who you love back. Being a leader or being in spaces without people who you feel supported by is completely futile, and we can't really bring any of ourselves without the support networks. And so for me, it's been about taking the time to call my parents, call my siblings every day, quite religiously, and I love staying in touch. I love updating them about my day. And I work a lot with, I work a lot at uni, but I try and call my grandparents as well every day, and I send videos, and I think staying in touch with people that way has been my form of self-care. I've always been quite a not necessarily committed, but honestly obsessive person. So if I play the violin, I practice the violin like crazy. If I get stuck into a project, I'm working on it 100% of the time, or not quite, but what I mean. So I think it's very easy to get head down, bum up mentality and not come up for air, and kind of realize that there are so many things happening around us, and it's very easy to get down a rabbit hole and not come up again, and realize that we have to look after ourselves in order to produce our best work. So my form of self-care has kind of been staying in touch with those that are close to me, and that's kind of what I do. But I don't know, I'd love to hear from you, Ali.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. I think for me, I've been able to find some very, very good people around me and good groups around me around, which is outside of advocacy spaces. Like, for example, I want to give massive shout out to my running club, but it's just riders, which I've been finding probably the most amazing people out there are in those running clubs. And I'm very passionate about running, and I think it's just really gives me a good head show around just being able to unplug yourself from the world that you are so much passionate about and you resonate with so much, and you just be able to kind of connect with people on a sort of on a different journey that and kind of a different part of your life that you are as well. So that is pretty cool. But as well as I referee football on the weekends, which is probably one of the hardest job in the world that is out there, refereeing a game of football where no one is absolutely happy from you. But I think just again it gives you an opportunity to kind of fully unplug from kind of weeks mahi, be able to kind of just be able to kind of focus for something which is so different for 90 minutes at least. And then so like again, like for me, I'd be able to kind of do different things. But one other thing that I really do, I catch up with friends. I send people text messages around, and I think once a week I catch up with a friend that I haven't met in a while, and be able to kind of Kōrero with for a couple of hours around different things, and be able to kind of reflect on each other's journey and be able to where you are in life. I think that is pretty cool. So just never be shy of just asking people for catch up. I feel if people as well, people, just be able to kind of be able to connect with people, be able to have those catch ups, and they're really, really cool for your well-being, and also kind of reflect around how far you've come as people as well. So so all of those has been really beneficial for myself.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like one of the most disappointing things that I realize is that running actually does help your mental. 20s realizations, it actually works. People do it, go for a little jog because it helps a ton. And, connections, family, friends, all of it, so essential in the ways we look after ourselves. So really appreciate you all, being vulnerable enough to share those little top tips to keeping yourself well. And thinking about our communities, it would be really great to hear your thoughts about the ways in which communities, and maybe that's friends and family, or just wider organizations, can support and enable young people in their leadership journeys.
Okay, super quick with this one. Let young people onto your boards. Like, let them in the door, let them sit at the table so that they can say what they want to say and then get out of there. Because things will be a lot easier if you just went straight to the source rather than, sorry, I'm being quite direct, rather than going through all of the processes of going, let's ask Bob, to ask Timmy, to ask Sam, to ask Sandra, to get to Jess, then she thinks, who's then going to relay back the information train to get to the board. And by the time it gets to the top, it's going to be completely out of whack and the information is going to be fifth hand. So let's just get the young people in the door, in the room, at the table, say what they have to say, and then get out of there. And it's super simple, super easy. So that's my advice to organizations, corporates, nonprofits, whatever you want, take the risk, put a young person on your team, put a young person on your board. It's going to pay off.
Jess, America gave you vim. That's saying it gives you energy, because tall poppy syndrome, clearly you don't know her. You don't know her. Talk about it. Leilani Ali, can you follow that?
Yes, I can, and I will.
Sure.
I'm plugging my LinkedIn here because I did a post about this a few weeks back. I went to a youth forum here in Palmerston North. Great initiative, great to see. Only our youth council were there and a few of our students. There was no other youth apart from the organisations that served our youth. And when it came to asking what we needed for youth, there was obvious evidence of a lack of initiatives by youth for youth. And so what I say in that post kind of reflects what I'm about to say. So in our community psychology paper that I'm currently learning about is the gift of listening. And that's not only to say, listen to our youth, but also, youth, sometimes we have to just humble ourselves a little and listen to our elders too, because once upon a time, they used to be young without wrinkles as well. And so it's just remembering, we are all young in some way. We all have experienced the same processes and systems, if not worse. And we have to listen to each other and work together. This is not a fight between generations. This is a collaborative, collective solidarity where we can work towards a better tomorrow. 2, remunerating us for our time. Oh, my days. The amount of unpaid work that youth get given, shocking. And we don't have full-time jobs. We literally do this out of our volunteering, empty pockets. Our school leaders, just want to give a shout out to you guys. The amount of work you guys do in school, amazing. But once you're in uni and you're a broke student, it's got to pay something, Number 3 is creating space and change for youth or by youth and or with youth. Like Jess said, whether it's putting youth on boards, whether it's having youth advisories, youth committees, please have youth in your organization so that they can also represent or make change from their narratives as well. For critical reflexivity and how your processes are done, how your systems are made, how youth are involved in those. And 5 is to invest and support our youth, whether that's financial or non-financial. We need exposure, but we need a whole lot more than that to make that change. So just think about how your positions, your privileges, and your location help you to make youth make a better tomorrow. My words are going, but Ali, over to you.
Wow, Leilani, that was so cool. I think probably haven't left anything for me, but I think I would just share that. I think put trust in young people, put belief in them. I think I've excelled in environments where there has been an element of trust that is out there in yourself. So I think, and plus everything else that has been previously mentioned, I think just be able to kind of consistently be able to have faith in young people, and you'll be surprised.
Oof. I feel like all of the advisory groups that have had to do engagements and consultations, it could be simmered down to this. Pay us, trust us, put us on your boards, and then listen. Because there's really nothing else after that. So thank you all for being so clear and concise and just direct and straight to the point. About time. It doesn't need to be an 8-month consultation to come to these conclusions. So I'm so glad that you've been able to be so explicit with what young people need, because it's really so straight in front of us. And thinking more about kind of the tools that exist for young people in the leadership space, how do you all see technology and social media kind of shaping what the future of youth leadership actually looks like, whether that's on Instagram or LinkedIn? It would be really cool to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a complicated relationship with this one because I am personally not the biggest fan of LinkedIn, and I delete Instagram during the semester because I don't like to scroll. But I do think that social media has an incredible capacity to create change, to amplify voices, and to bring stories into digestible forms for everyday people to see and get in a snippet. But that's the very thing about social media, is that it's going to go in one ear and quite possibly out the other within 5 seconds. So I think the question is not necessarily about how social media can be used as a tool, because let's face it, it's going to be, and it is. But how can we make the content on social media actually stick to the audiences it reaches? You know, how can we make that post that person's doom scrolling on and getting for 1 second actually go, like, I should follow that up, or I should click on that link. And I mean, this is a pretty far-fetched example, but the only reason I applied to Harvard University was because I was sitting on Instagram one day and I saw an advertisement that said, "Did you know Harvard can be free?" Simple as that. That was it, in red writing. And I was like, no, heck no, no idea. So I clicked on the link and it took me to the website, and lo and behold, it somehow worked out for me. I applied and I managed to go. Very privileged, a lot of luck involved in that situation. That's a story for another time. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that being concise, being articulate, and being able to amplify voices in a very explicit way to get someone to, you know, take what they've seen and go, I want to learn more, is what's important. It's not how social media, but what we're going to do about it.
Oh, absolutely true. I think it is so important to really talk about how we currently interact with social media, understand that it exists as a really interesting resource, but ultimately be really clear and concise about how we want to use it positively. And I'd love to hear from our local social media girly who is rocking Instagram with the reels. Leilani, please, I'd love to know your thoughts.
Oh, sure. Yeah, guys, go follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. What are you doing? I need more followers, please. No, I'm kidding. I actually want to take a bit of a different direction here, and point out, like, yes, we know technology and social media is a game changer, but also we know that there's a digital divide, and trouble when it's coming to accessibility with technology and social media, not only in understanding it, but also having the tools and the resources to use it properly, or I guess in every day. And so just want to acknowledge our Pasifika Māori communities, especially who struggle with that digital divide. And so in saying this, I'm not forgetting the human and face-to-face connections and the values of, like, us as people in technology. There's a huge push now for Māori and Pasifika to get into tech, and that's not customer service roles, that's making the technology themselves, because when we're thinking about who's making the technology, who's behind the technology, what systems, powers, and narratives again are in that technology, we need to be very mindful of, who's pushing it behind the scenes, but also then on the other side, what we can do as youth. So what it looks for me is representing 685 and 267 proudly on Instagram and LinkedIn, having those really hard conversations and pushing those narratives that are counter alternative to the dominant narratives. And I think, just being proud and loud and not letting anyone tell you what to say or what you can do. Ali, over to you if you had any words.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. I mean, but also for us, I think for our communities as well, I think it's kind of the elements around sharing stories. I think be able to kind of diversify what's out there in the world. I think it's very, very cool. I think I'm myself big fan of most of the social media platforms, but also be able to kind of consistently be able to kind of get you up to date what's happening around the world yourself. I think it's going to be it's very, very cool. But also I just want to also kind of reiterate around sort of kind of how toxic your relationship with your social media can be. Myself, especially with LinkedIn, I've had such a up and down relationship over the years, and I've really struggled at times with the platform. So to kind of be aware of yourself, and I think it's going to be very, very key as real, because it really works differently for everyone else. But about being able to kind of share the platform, be able to share stories through the platform, is kind of very, very cool. Platform is quite digestible, quite can reach the masses very, very quickly as well, which is a kind of strong point of it. But again, as I previously reiterated, it can get really, really ugly and can really, really get toxic very, very quickly as well. So we just need to find that kind of the balance, and it will work very, very differently for everyone else.
Oh, I appreciate all three of you really holding that the dichotomy between the two, that social media can be this really toxic space, but it can be an empowering space to share really individual stories to empower us, the young people that exist on the margins. And that is definitely the nuance that we need to kind of take into that space when we're thinking about the digital landscape, and also thinking about access. So who's being left behind and who can't actually see what's really out there. And when we're thinking about access, it would be great to hear your thoughts about how opportunity providers can more actively create youth leadership spaces that are a lot more accessible. So a lot more inclusive of young people who are either rural or regional, from marginalized identities. What do you think that they can do practically to reach them?
I think there's a good story around. So about 3-4 years ago, my local regional sports body, Sport Manager, and they told me like they want to do a sports sort of program for our refugee young people, and I said, how are you going to access our young people? And they said, oh, I'm going to check it on social media, and then hopefully people will turn up. And for us, there is probably not the best way of connecting with our young people. For our young people, as kind of, I think for us to be able to kind of, for our young people to have access to, you need to go through the families and be able to connect for us, the element of family is so important. For example, like you need to go kind of have a bit more of a kind of a different approach to the ones that you have to the masses. So as well, so it's going to be kind of a whole lot of kind of different ways around kind of interacting. But again, I just want to reiterate that the way that some of the advisory bodies work, I think there's a massive pressure put onto one person's shoulders to represent the whole community. I've been so many places where you are the only one representing the refugee communities, for example, for myself, and refugee communities are so diverse. It looks very different. Probably I can represent on behalf of my family, or on behalf of the local Afghan community in Palmerston North, or even on behalf of the refugee community in Palmerston North. But to be able to have expectations, to be able to advocate on behalf of the nationally wise, I personally don't have any understanding of probably what are the issues for young refugees living in Dunedin potentially as well. So we stakeholders really need to understand that the amount of pressure at times that they are putting in terms of the advisory bodies in regards to certain young people as well. But I think but as well how we can connect, but you need to be very, very flexible in the way you connect with diverse young people.
Yeah, 100%. And then jumping on the back of that, I think it's incredibly important to know your audience and know what kind of individual your opportunity is going to attract. If you're running a speech competition and you're looking for diverse insights on, let's say, race relations in Aotearoa, you're going to get a very specific type of individual who's even going to have the confidence, resources, ability to get up and give a speech before an audience. If you want to understand what race relations are like at the everyday level or at an individualized level in communities, you have to bring that opportunity to those communities, and you have to go and run direct engagements or direct kōrero sessions or workshops with those communities. And this is actually what I was able to do in my gap year with Race Unity Aotearoa. So Race Unity Aotearoa runs a speech competition. It is a nationwide speech competition, but at the end of the day, we realized that the insights we were getting were very limited to the subset of individuals who actually have the confidence, capacity, ability to get up and articulate their thoughts on a national stage. So you have to go into these communities, you have to create these conversations, and you have to facilitate the kōrero to actually have everybody from diverse backgrounds, experiences, insights contribute what they have to say. And I think that game-changing thing that we did enabled us to engage over 2,000 young people across the country. It enabled us to write authentic and informative and very, very interesting, diverse perspectives on race relations around Aotearoa. And these are the kind of the things that we certainly would not have gotten from a speech award alone. So I think that really thinking about your opportunity and your goals of your organization, if your opportunity is something that you think aligns with your goals, think twice, because it probably gets to a subset of what you're trying to do.
I love that, Jess, and it's a really hard one. And again, I want to bring in the critical thinking and reflexivity, the importance of those practices as organizations. You know, we often throw around this word of silos, but we actually, I think, need to think about how are we silos? It's not about just the office walls being a barrier to society. It's also like the way that you're engaging, like Jess touched on. And so when I think about that, the deficit versus growth mindsets and narratives, we're not coming from a place of, oh, we don't have this, or youth aren't this. We're coming from a place of, okay, that might not exist now, but what can we do to make that an opportunity? Or what are the successful narratives of our youth? Because there's so many diverse narratives of so many people that we can't keep coming from the place of dominant narratives of what they're saying about our youth. And I will say one of them is that our youth are really bad with admin and emails. Okay, yeah, slay, but maybe there's a gap there that our youth needs to be built with the capacity to, or capabilities to be able to respond in emails. Or is that, I guess, shedding light on the fact that, again, bringing in face-to-face connections over admin and emails, how is the way that we are operating impacting the youth or people that we are connecting with? And so when I think about that, I'm thinking about building relationships over the opportunities themselves. You can't go into a community and expect them outrightly to give them all your knowledge, like all their knowledge, just off the back of one meet and greet. You need to build relationships with our youth. You need to get to know them for who they are. Because when it comes to building truly inclusive spaces, it's knowing who people are, who their cultural background is, and bringing that also into that space. I also want to emphasize the point of setting the standard of love and care. I want to shout out here the YWCA and also MYLN, the amount of work and alofa, love and service that goes into the back of these events is stunning. Compared to some of the corporate events I've been to, I was shocked. When it comes to paying everything, making sure the event runs smoothly, making sure our well-being's all good, those are the things that our youth organizations that are by youth, for youth, run really well. But when I go into corporates, the standard is low. And so I just want to call that out straight away, because that is something that is also a barrier to our youth as well. So please think about how you are being inclusive or exclusive to the youth that you want to serve or are serving right now.
I hope all the opportunity providers on the call are taking notes, that they're paying very, very close attention, because all of these tangible tips and tricks would do so far, will go so far to supporting the next generation of leaders trying to access these types of opportunities. And we're getting close to the end of our kōrero, so I thought it would be great for us to end with some questions from the audience. Some have been sent through, some are already in the chat, so I'll just go ahead and kick off. How do you work through feeling out of place or that you don't belong in leadership spaces? So whether that's being gaslit by some of the seniors, maybe you're not feeling culturally represented in the space, but how do you work through those experiences?
How do we work through, this isn't even how do you work through feeling diminished or belittled, but how do you work through conflict, I think is the real essence of this question. Because if you're feeling like you're being diminished, or that you're not being listened to, or that people aren't respecting you, it's not necessarily a matter of, feeling inadequate, but that people just don't, they fundamentally disagree, right? They fundamentally disagree with either what you're proposing or the fact that you exist in their space. First off, they're wrong for that. But second, I think disagreement leads to so much productivity, and it means that you actually have, and I mean, this is maybe like a little bit of a positive way of looking at it, and maybe I'm just trying to be too positive with this, but honestly, the fact that they disagree with you so strongly, or that they disagree with your premise, means that you have something to prove and you have something to bring. And because you bring that perspective that is contrary to what they think is valid in that space, it's so much more valuable. And so voice it, say it louder, scream it from the rooftops if you have to, write that email, reach out to that person, do that thing, because what you have to contribute matters.
Absolutely, Jess. Absolutely totally over there as well. But I think as young people, I think we need to kind of, I think something that I did quite a few years ago has been very super helpful for myself over the years. Been know your values, know where you stand. I think ensure that you've got values-driven leadership. I think that will really help you navigate in terms of when you got into kind of places of that you find very difficult to navigate through. I think it's going to be really help you throughout kind of the system. But I think for the kind of the background that I come from, I think for our young people, there is nobody's going to open the doors for you. You just need to kind of break the doors and the windows to be able to get through things in places. So I think it's going to be able to kind of be very resilient. I think our young people, refugee young people around the world are known for being resilient, just really be able to kind of be strong in some of those environments, because you know why your values and kind of the upbringings that you have in terms of being kind of be able to stick to what you believe is absolutely in your core is right. So being able to kind of be very proud of your identity in regards to what you bring to the table as well. So all of them, I think, will definitely help. But I think ensuring that you're strong to your values will be very, very helpful.
Sorry, everyone, technical difficulties over here. My laptop was running low. So apologies if I repeat things, but just so I can repeat the question for my brain, how to deal with working in spaces where you feel out of place. This is a really tough one, and one that I've had and still do work in multiple places where I feel out of place, especially as a proud Samoan young woman, a systems disruptor, someone who loves to challenge the status quo. And I think you'll have to come in to accept the truth that will be most places you go into. And that's just, I guess safeguarding yourself when you're going into the spaces and being really intentional with how you serve in those spaces. I had a very beautiful conversation with Miss Vira the other day, and we were talking about, how can I serve in spaces where I myself come from a place of servant leadership. We serve, it's not just about the title, it's about serving and representing our communities, and it's so important because there's a lack of youth representation, but how do we do that safely? And that's a really tough question to answer, especially when the organization themselves, which is supposed to be safe, isn't safe and doesn't have those processes in it. And so then it comes down to you. And this is where you set boundaries. Again, repeating that quote, empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. And so when you think about that, how can I set boundaries in place to protect myself? And from what Vira told me, this looks like being really upfront and honest and saying, hey, I'm at capacity at the moment, I can't serve in this role or this role, but maybe later on, or maybe I could give you some resources, maybe I could serve in another way. And I think it's being really intentional with how you say stuff, and strategic in terms of who you say it to, especially because some people on those organizations won't take it the right way. And so finding those allies again, just to make sure that you've got a safe space in that place, but also being very real with yourself. And if this place isn't aligning with my values, why am I there? And am I there to improve the communities? Yes. Is this place going to improve those communities? No. Okay, leave. Like straight up, leave. Because there are so many fish in the sea, so many other organizations, so many people that will rally around you that could make the same change, if not more change, with you.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you all. Just to conclude our kōrero, one last question from the audience. What is one thing that makes you feel hopeful about the future of youth leadership in Aotearoa? Apologies that we're going a little bit over, but the juicy kōrero needs to keep flowing. And I'll pass it to you, Ali, to kick us off.
I think I'm very, very hopeful around when I look around myself, and I think the amount of in terms of young people and young leaders, and it looks so much diverse and around just kind of the spectrum that I look at. And I think when I look at kind of the amount of young parliamentarians that this time around, sorry, I'm political nerd, and I probably would refer to that. And I think in terms of kind of a socially progressive space that we are, in terms of the amount of young people that are putting their hands up for leadership spaces. I think I'm super hopeful around that as well. But again, there's a massive long way to go in terms of the communities that I represent, in terms of us to be able to kind of consistently challenge the status quo. But I'm very positive in regards to kind of the opportunities that Aotearoa are laying out for us. But again, consistently be able to kind of, in the amount of people that is out speaking from our communities, be able to kind of break those windows and those barriers has been immense. I just want to again reflect back on the kind of the journeys of the likes of Guru Garaman and the likes of my good friend Abbas Nasari, who has been consistently challenged the status quo around who we are as communities as well, has been very helpful. But I think we just need more people, and I'm very positive there are more young people on the way that's going to challenge this status quo and hopefully change the system for the better.
Beautiful. I love that, Ali. Yeah, what makes me hopeful about the future of youth leadership is everyone here on this call, all our young rangatahi, our leaders here in Aotearoa. Seeing you guys every single day, I'm not even going to lie, literally is my why. Like, knowing that we have so many other youth organizations. I just want to give a shout out to you guys, because we have been pretty hard and upfront tonight about corporates and organizations, but we see you guys, we value everyone on this call and that couldn't tune in tonight. We honor you, and we just want to really thank you and acknowledge you. Please keep going. The future of Aotearoa is a collective one that we can all work towards. But I just want to remind everyone that you are enough. You are loved. You are amazing as you are. So thank you so much for joining the call. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Jess.
Oh, you should have gone last. That was such a beautiful way to end, but I'll ruin it. I think what makes me most passionate or excited about the future of youth leadership in Aotearoa New Zealand is not only everything that Ali and Leilani has said, but my little brother, my 5-year-old little brother, who has not a care in the world, but his trucks and his cars and whatever he's obsessed with at that point in time. And I think that fundamentally we all need to go back to that place of play, that place of childhood, that place of love and appreciation for the world and how beautiful it can be and everything around us. Because fundamentally that at the end of the day, that is youth and that is leadership. They're people who don't worry about the big picture necessarily, or worry about all the things that adults worry about, because we have to live in that space, we have to be in that space, and we have to be unapologetically ourselves and happy with life and excited by that. And so that's what makes me confident and excited about the future of youth leadership, is that it continues and it's regenerative, and as we grow old, our siblings, our own descendants are going to replace us. So it gives me a lot of hope, it gives me a lot of joy to know that youth are here and we're here to stay.
That was an equally perfect way to end it. I want to thank you all for all of your whakaaro this evening. I think there's something wonderful when we can take the time to be a bit more vulnerable and share our stories, the hardships that can come with it, the difficult moments that we've experienced, but all towards the betterment of our community of young people who are trying to do something for their communities, trying to do something for themselves and the future generations. So I just want to big mihi to you all for the time that you've spent with us this evening. And I am really excited to pass it back to Shaheen to get to our next part of our program, which is our breakout Kōrero. So back to you.